seriously, again, the rules for 2023 are changing again? You know what? I know which ones are important to you, and we've got you covered. As of January 1st, 2023, there are some new rules that you need to know about. And today, Mark Pfeiffer will be joining us. Now, you might not recognize his name, but Mark is the chair of USA Pickleball Rules Committee. And he is here to tell us about 5 rules that you need to know. One's about a serve, one's a wrong score called. And actually, it's not a new rule, it's going back to an older rule. Oh, there's one about shirt color. So stay tuned. Hey, Mark, thanks so much for joining us. Um, Before we jump into the rules, some people may not understand the process that the rules committee and the board at USA Pickleball goes through to make the rules changes. So, can you explain that briefly?
Well, I tell you, so we had about 74 rule submissions that came into the process. We kind of filtered them through different modes, and um, all 74 were reviewed by the rules committee, the 5-member rules committee, and we voted on each and every one of them. And we took our votes and we sent them to the board of directors of USA Pickleball, and they voted on the same group that we voted on. Coming out of that, we have about 11 rules that will be changed or modified, either new or modified rules. And I'm going to highlight probably just five of them. I think that are probably appropriate. Many of the other ones are little changes and nuances that really aren't. I don't consider them major changes.
So, Mark, what is the most talked about rules change for 2023?
I think probably the biggest one and the one that has the most controversy around it is the spin serve. So those of us who have been around pickleball for at least 3 years know that coming out of COVID, we had something called the chainsaw serve. Zane Navratil is the one who really focused on that, invented it. And that came about because USA Pickleball wanted to provide a method of serving the ball so that people didn't have to actually touch the ball. And Zane I consider him a genius at the rules, and he figured out how to take advantage of this new COVID rule and create the chainsaw serve, which basically slid the ball across the paddle face and it created all kinds of spin. Uh, Coincident with that, we also had Morgan Evans, a pro player, another pro player, senior pro player, who had perfected the ability to spin the serve out of the hand. And so we were faced with that last year. What do we do with the spin serve? We have it coming off the paddle and we have it coming out of the hand. We adopted the stance that we would eliminate the spin serve off the paddle but allow the spin serve out of the hand, watch it for a year and see what happens. And our thought process was because you've been able to, we as players have been able to spin the serve out of the hand since 1965, that provision has always been there. So we adopted a stance. We'd watch it for a year now that this is starting to take hold in the sport and has some attention. So what have we seen over the last year? We said we would look at it and see how wide and deep the spin serve out of the hand, manipulating the ball out of the hand, would take place in the sport. Well, there's mixed results. And taking a look at that out of the manipulation of the ball pre-serve and spinning the ball with the hand as mixed results. There are some who have really perfected it, some mostly males. There's very few females that have been able to adopt this, and that was really kind of one of the things that we looked at. If we saw this widely throughout the sport, it would take we'd probably taken a different stance, because if you see it quite a bit, then you should be, the thought process was you should be able to read it. Well, the opposite has happened. We don't have it wide and deep throughout the country, especially with the women players. So that was a factor in our decision. The other factor in our decision is that those who have perfected this very well can spin it out of the hand, hit it with a paddle, and when it hits, it can literally move off this bounce off the court 2 to 3 feet, either left or right. And we know that there are many locations where space is a consideration. You have a very short space between the court you're playing on and the adjacent court, some with and without fences. And so that was also a consideration, a primary consideration, why we said, you know what, this has been a great experiment. It's been a lot of fun. It's got a lot of controversy and people on both sides of this argument. But in the long run, it's not good for the sport. So we adopted a stance that we would eliminate any pre-serve manipulation of the ball with any part of the body. And I know for those who love to see innovation in the sport, this has been met with disdain, but we thought it was the best approach to take, and the board agreed with us. So the bottom line is the spin serve is going away, effective January 1st of 2023. You will see, by the way, you'll see the new rule book. If I'm successful, we'll have it out for review on the 1st of December. And that way we have about a 30-day time period between the 1st of December and the 1st of January for players to read the new rules, get familiar with them, and actually adopt them in their own play.
All right, Mark, the next rule is actually not a new rule. It's an oldie but a goodie, and it has to do with the wrong score being called.
Right now, if the referee or the server calls the wrong score, you have up until the point at which you make contact with the ball to say, hey, wait a minute, that's the wrong score. That we've been running with that as the rule for the last year. And the feedback has been that's not nearly enough time, because there's some people that purposely time the calling of the score with their serve. So as soon as they finish with a 5-4-2, as soon as 2 has been called, then boom, they serve the ball, and there's no time to say, wait a minute, that's the wrong score. So we're going to go back to the rule that existed in 2021. And that rule says that you can call for a score correction up until the return of the serve. So now there's a much more time that's available for receivers to say, well, wait a minute, that's the wrong serve. Now, if you're wrong, then it's a fault, right? Or if you call wrong serve after the return of serve, that's going to be a fault.
Mark, that's one of the things that Tony and I always tell players is if there's a wrong score called, just to keep playing, put it out of your head, play, and clarify the score in between points. And next year, there's an even better incentive to do that, because if you're wrong, and you very well may be, now it's a fault. If you want to hear the other 3 rules you need to know for next year, including what color shirt you can or cannot wear, click on the link right over here, because together we can train smart, live bold, and age well.